I don't know how I'd make a silly opening segment for this one, so how does this make you feel, white boy? Pretty much anyone into video gaming history, not even niche crap junkies like me, will know about the development studio Rare. Apparently Rareware is just some term they use, I don't know, they use it for the logo screens. Anyways, most of the titles that Rare's famous for were the ones that went hand in hand with Nintendo in the 90s, especially since they're pretty much the only third-party developer on the N64 that's looked back on as fondly as the first-party output. But things would come to a crashing halt for Rare's alliance with Nintendo as on September 24th, 2002, literally the day after Star Fox Adventure's North American release date, they'd be bought out by Microsoft, which in retrospect is a pretty smart move. I mean, when you pass up the opportunity to buy a studio who made some of the most beloved 3D platformers and early first-person shooters on consoles, I think this alongside having the most of Sega's respect really contributed to how Microsoft was willing to make efforts in being a long-lasting hardware manufacturer, as they were even trying their best to experiment as much as the competition in the days of the OG Xbox and 360. One of the titles that Rare developed for the Xbox 360 was Viva Piñata, a town management game where you restore a garden and have little piñata animals come in to live there. The game was received well by critics and is typically considered a cult classic, which was enough for more games in the series to come out. Microsoft even bet well on the game's success, as they also got 4Kids Entertainment to make a tie-in animated series to go alongside the release of the game. Now I'll admit I haven't actually played the game myself, please stay with me here. So you may be thinking why I'm covering this if that's the case. Well, I did recently pick up a 360 and at just the right time as well. The soft modding scene's been popping off lately. I think I'm set with this and my copies of Catherine and Shadows of the Damned really. But I always thought animated series adaptations of video games were really neat as well. I may be a generic Gen Z over nostalgic trans girl, but I do have fond memories of watching the Mario Super Show and 90s Sonic cartoons as a kid, except for Sad AM somehow. God did not want me thirsting over Sally Acorn. The Viva Piñata series was not only produced by 4Kids Entertainment, but also Bardell Entertainment. Both studios have extremely notable productions in their portfolio, though part of that in 4Kids' case is because of the series they aired on the 4Kids network block, as well as its variants throughout its life. The intro has a narrated section explaining that the piñatas on the island hope to one day be selected to entertain at a party, which is cool, but assumedly that means them being busted open like regular piñatas?
Well, most piñatas, that is.
Seems like they're the sane ones for thinking that bludgeoning people to the point of their insides spewing out isn't part of partying. I'm already putting in the suspension of disbelief to be fine with sentient piñatas, damn it. The first episode, Crocodile Tears, opens on the main crew of the series in the middle of a withered garden, when this guy, Fergie, looks over to a neighboring garden and decides to ask the owner if it chortles for help on theirs. Alright crew, we've got a clearly made to be marketable little shit to assassinate.
Who are you supposed to be? The water boy?
The doorbell shot a white fluid at him. Are you sure you didn't fill it with milk or... So the gang are invited to his house, and after being stuck with having to listen to his amateur comedy routines for a bit, they find out that it's the tears of a crocodile that has the plants grow surprisingly easy. After finding one that had just exited from Chortle's house, they rope him in to attempt to harvest his tears. In other words, one montage of them making various attempts later, and the guy eventually flees. Turns out the thing that Chortles was doing was, you probably predicted it already, having him cry from laughing so hard. You know, the crocodile acted like he wasn't sure why the crew wanted his tears, so either he knew about what they did and he was lying, or this would be uploaded. Overall, it's a decent first episode. It's got a fairly decent setup, foreshadow to the resolution of, unfortunately, a bit of filler along the way, as the montage of them hanging out posters was just done to pad out to 11 minutes, but overall this episode is pretty solid. The next episode, Candiosity, opens on this frog guy telling the residents to go around eating to fill themselves with candy, and the ones with a high enough amount of candy will be sent off to a party, though Polly and Fergie aren't wanting to be sent away.
I don't understand how you guys can be all gung-ho about getting beaten by a crazed pack of candy-craving, baseball bat-wielding savages!
No, thank you very much.
I told you this would have to be explained in canon. Please come back. Yeah, so Fergie isn't able to restrain himself from eating, and he realizes that he's extremely full, so he desperately asks for help from a supposedly wise man named Bon Boom, and after working a lot of chores, he finds more candy and he lets his greed become his downfall. Except, he takes a bite out of himself and his tail explodes at the last moment. How is he not dead? Who fucking knows? I also watched the segments in the second full episode, though I realized I didn't have much for funny things to say about them. The most I could say is that it was funny finding the animation errors in the second segment. Yeah, the animation style is a bit generic for 2000s for the animated kids shows, and it looks pretty damn rough at times. The show had a pretty fair run anyways, lasting for the TV series standard of 52 episodes. The network's 4Kids and eventually CW4Kids would end its airing of the series partway through, but the Canadian channel YTV did air everything to its final episode in 2009, and fully end airing in 2011. Honestly, I'd say the Viva Piñata series from what I've watched is pretty decent. I wouldn't say this is underrated, but I bet if you're a fan of the series in general, then this is probably great supplemental material, and admittedly you'd probably be better at judging this than I can. And hey, if you want to see me cover more adaptations of game series, let me know. I bet Captain N is an absolute fever dream. And to answer the question from the start of this video, I don't know what to feel.